This is Kitzur Yoimi. As we continue Hilchais Tefilin, we are in Siman Yod, and we're continuing with Sif Dalid. Says the Kitzur in Sif Dalid, Meniach as Tefilin Mu'umad. Tefillin are put on standing up. You know that Sfardim don't necessarily concur with that statement. They put on their Tefillin Shel Yad sitting, but us Ashkenazim, we put on our Tefillin standing. Lo Yinaris Tefillin Menatek, says the Kitzur, you don't shake out your Tefillin from the bag. Misham Bizei Mitzvah. You take them with your hands. As obvious as this sounds, if you look around, you'll see people doing that and something to be careful of. First we put miniach tchila shel yad. First goes tefillin shel yad. Before you tie in the namavarich, lehaniach tefillin ahei b'kamat lehaniach tefillin v'alamid shel tefillin digusha. Again, hard to know how you emphasize the lamid tefillin, but either way, you tie in the nap. Voice is sheva krichas al yad, and you make 7 wraps around your arm. And before you tie in it, mevarich, you make the bracha al mitzvah tefillin, avav bipatach al mitzvah tefillin. Umhadik al rosh, you tie it to your head, and you say baruch shem kol machsulam ba'ed ayin primigadim. And the Kitzur gives you the basic understanding. After you make the bracha on Tefilin Shel Rosh, it's a suffix brachais, and therefore you say Baruch Shem after Tefilin Shel Rosh. There are different opinions about this. There are some Hasidim that only make one bracha just on the Shel Yad because of this suffix, but the Kitzur goes with the general minhag Ashkenaz, which is you make 2 brachas. So because it's if you hear someone make the bracha, if you say Amen, Al Kinir Ali says the Kitzur, Kitayv the Baruch Zois Balach. That's really a klal. Anytime it's unclear whether you should say Amen, you don't say the bracha aloud. So says the Kitzur, Tefillin Shel Yad, if Hadi could say aloud, let someone say Amen. But Tefillin Shel Rosh, don't say the bracha aloud because of the cycle. Shel Rosh, then Oizer Shel Yad Shel Shkichos, you make the Tefillin Shel Yad 3 wrapped al etzam inside on the middle finger, achas beparakam size, 1 around the middle joint, ushtayim beparakatachtoin, and 2 around the lower joint. Lower joint means closer to the hand. Excuse me. Continues the Kitzur Sifei. I feel even if it happened. So we already learned the klal loving mavir and mitzvahs. So says the Kitzur, what happens if by accident you take out Tefillin Shel Rosh first? Still. Sarach lahaver al mitzvah, you have to. It's unfortunate, but you have to pass over the mitzvah and you have to allow it out of your hand. And what do? You cover it over with something, and you have to put on your tefillin shel yad first. Even the kedima, and the reason is because there is a kedima shel yad shel rosh. Tefillin sheyad before the tefillin sheyash humin atayra shenemar ukshartim l'sayidecha v'luzinecha. First is yodecha, then the tefillin shel rosh. Lefikach im mashkin alvar mitzvahs. Therefore, even though you are passing over the mitzvah, because the din da'araisa says the Kitzur, we have no choice. You leave your tefillin shel rosh, you cover it over, and you put on your tefillin shel yad first. Continues the Kitzur sivav. Lo yedavar chayz, there should be nothing blocking between lebesar between split your flesh. Loishna shel yad v'loishna shel rosh. Neither your tefillin shel yad nor your tefillin shel rosh. Ukseris eksurais. Short hairs because they are the regular way of the body. If you have a long hair in front of your head, says the Kitzur, as we'll see as we saw in Siman Gimel, we don't dress that way. Excuse me. There's also yesh oid esim yisham melachas tefillin, because when you put on your tefillin, it's this that the kivin shegedolim harbe, since your hair is very long, havyon chatzitzah could be a Chatzitzah. Now on the bottom of here, note 49, they point out that the Mishnah Berurah also says you can have a problem of tightening it on your head, which is an issue. We'll just point out having a Chatzitzah, what's called long. You have, Hasidim that shave their head all the way to a little bit of hair, to a mamish and afro. So the basic understanding is, number one, if it sits on your head and it's basically sitting on your head, not an afro that's off your head, that's one way of saying what's a chatzitzah. Similarly, is if your hair is in its place. If you put it on your hair and your hair is in its place, that's not called a chatzitzah. Whereas if you were to move your hair and put it on top of your hair, then your hair is not in its place, and that would be a chatzitzah. We continue with Sif Zayin. You know, Tefilin Shel Yad, if you careful, Tefilin Shel Yad Shel Yaz is a kesher and a bias. The kesher should not be moved away from the bias. V'gam kshem b'toch hakison sriach lizar b'zeh. I'll just tell you that we just did Tefilin checking yeshiva, and this was something that one has to be careful with. And on Tefilin Shel Yad, the knot, you have to be careful that it always touches the bias, even when it's not in your body, even when you're not wearing it, even when it's in the box. And over here, they have a beautiful picture. You see the knot is touching the bias, and that's the way it has to be, even when you're not wearing it. Many people have a gid, have a sinew, they tie around it to keep it in. You could push it in, but lamaisa, you want it to be touched. Says the Kitzur further, the yud of the kasher is towards the heart, not on the flip side around. The end of the Tefilin Shel Yad, which is the mavarta through the strap, goes to Tiyel Litzad Mayla, Abayis Litzad Mata, and the bias goes on the bottom. Now, Artzul just points out over here that if you flip over your Tefilin Shel Yad, it's going to be upside down, and therefore it will not work. Says the Kitzur, now what happens if you have a left-handed person, let's say you have no lefty tefillin, so you put your tefillin on the right hand. You have no other tefillin, so you borrow tefillin from a righty who puts on his left hand. Therefore you have to flip around the tefillin, and it's going to come out that the yud, the knot, is going to be on the wrong side, and the strap is going to be coming out of the bottom, not the top. You can't switch around. You turn the shalyat around and put it on. Says the Kitzur, you should turn around the tefillin. One thing that I guess the rule that we should keep in mind is that the yod always has to be on the inside. Even though if it's the lefty-righty tefillin, which everyone is talking about, is that the mavarta is going to be the wrong way. Article points out over here from the Be'er Halacha, the reason being is the mavarta is a minog, and the yod is a halacha. Therefore, we always have to make sure that the yod is mitzad aleif. Continues the Kitzur in Siv Ches. Osir lafsik b'sicha, you're not allowed to talk bein shel yad l'shel rosh l'romas bein of, even to motion with your eyes, v'likros b'etzba'is, of a motion with your fingers. Osir she'nemar v'lechos ayod chol zikaron b'ninecha, has to both be together. Sarich zechira, while putting in your tefillin, she take it, tefillin shel rosh shel yad. It's one avaya for both of them, and therefore one has to be careful. No, anything, even someone comes to ask you a question, you go like this, you go 1 second. No, that's a motion, you can't do that. Between Shel Yad and Shel Rosh, Tefilin Shemea Kaddish and Kedusha Lo Yafsik. You don't say anything between Tefilin Shel Yad and Shel Rosh. El Yeshta V'Chaim L'Masha Imrim Hakol. However, let's say you're putting on Tefilin Shel Yad, and right when you finish, the guy next to you also just put on his Tefilin Shel Yad and made the bracha L'Niach Tefillin. Then a unique rule, Yachol La'anois Amein Shari Amein Hu Ha'amanas Tevarim. Because that amin is what you're doing. It's affirming what you're doing. It's an amin to anachas tefillin. Shumayim in mitzvahs tefillin. And therefore, chiddush, that's not going to be heftik. Vavi kamoi havaya achas. Continues the Kitzur with tefillin to Rebbetan. Someone puts on tefillin to Rebbetan, you don't make a bracha. Gam ki nafs la'azmin shel yad shel rosh. But since you're not making a bracha between shel yad and shel rosh when it comes to Rabbeinu Tam tefillin, lekaddish kedusha yachol lahapsik. And we continue with Siv Tes. Imtav, if you made a mistake and you spoke with Tefilin Shel Yad and Shel Rosh, Yema Shel Yad, you move around the Shel Yad a little bit and put it back in its place. Yivarach Sheinis Laniach Tefilin, you make another Laniach. V'chazik HaKesher. V'achiniach Shel Rosh, then you put in Tefilin Shel Rosh. V'yivarach Olav. So again, you certainly shouldn't do that. It's a brach shein tzricha. It's brach levatala. V'hefsed l'sarachat Tefilin. Let's say you're mafsik for the purpose of Tefilin. Ino yitzarach levarach Shein Shel Yad. Of course, because being mafsik for the sake of the Tefilin is not considered a hefsek. And that is where we're going to stop. And we're going to it's not where we're going to stop. We're going to continue in Sif Yud. Says the Kitzur, you have in mind when you put in your tefillin. Says the oneness of Hashem, Yitzias Mitzrayim, Al Zorah Keneged Alev, it's opposite your heart, Valorosh Keneged Ambayach Keneged your head, Kanesh Nizkar, Talmud, you always should remember, Nisim Neflayi Shasi Imanu. What's the basic havana of tefillin? Number one, Hashem is one, and He took us out of Mitzrayim. It's connected to your heart. You always have to remember the wonderful miracles Hashem does from Shemar and Al Yichudo, which shows the oneness of Hashem. Hashem has complete power. Always to do whatever Hashem desires. And we're subjugating, and we're putting connected, and we're saying that our brain and our soul is all one. And our heart, all our taivos and machshavos and our thoughts, all of that, when we put in our tefillin, we're saying everything is to you, Hashem. Was that Yizkar Sabayir Yamet Hana'asav? You remember Hashem, you don't have Anavi, Kaim V'Lusul V'Chayil V'Avcham Achrinechem, Chen Kisev Tefillin Bein Einecha. And one last sif says the Kitzur Sif Yud Aleph, Tefillin Shel Yad Shel Rosh Shtei Mitzvahs Heim. They're two different mitzvahs. And one doesn't stop the other. Let's say you only have one of them. For whatever its reason. You can only put on one of them. For whatever its reason, you have a cast of mamish to your shoulder. You put on one. And then the Olam Voed. We'll stop over here. We'll pick it up from Sif Yud Beis. And the next year, B'siyata,